Today, we're diving into a musical legend who was basically three superstars packed into one person, the one and only Leonard Bernstein. Let's get into it. Okay, just think about this for a second. Imagine if the person directing the biggest video game of the year was also the same person writing #1 hits for someone like Taylor Swift. And on top of all that, they ran a huge educational channel that everyone watched. It sounds kind of impossible, right? One person can't be that good at so many different things. Well, in the world of music, that person was totally real. His name was Leonard Bernstein, and he was a master at juggling all these different roles. So let's break down exactly how he pulled it off. First up, let's talk about Bernstein the conductor. Now, if you're not sure what a conductor does, think of them like the raid leader for a 100-player gaming guild. They're the one calling the shots, making sure every single person is perfectly in sync to create this one epic performance. So how did he even get famous? Well, it's a pretty wild story. In 1943, Bernstein was a complete unknown, just an assistant conductor, kind of waiting in the wings for his big shot. Then, one night, the main conductor gets sick right before a huge show. Bernstein had to step in, with absolutely zero rehearsal time. And he didn't just get through it, he crushed it. As you can see here, he went from being a total understudy to a superstar, literally overnight. People absolutely loved watching him conduct because he wasn't all stiff and formal. He was pure energy. He had these huge, expressive movements. He'd leap into the air. He'd practically dance on the podium. He just knew how to build the emotional vibe of the music, and he wasn't afraid to improvise a little, even during a live show. These were his signature moves, and they made him an absolute rock star. Okay, so he's a world-famous conductor, cool. But that was just job #1. Let's switch to his next hat, Bernstein the composer. And you can pretty much think of him as a master DJ, taking sounds from completely different worlds and mashing them together to make something totally new. And this table right here breaks down his recipe perfectly. On one side, you've got all the classic stuff. He could write giant symphonies and complex music just like the old masters. But then, look at the other side. He'd mix in all this American flavor from his time. You know, the rhythms from jazz, the soul of the blues, and the show-stopping energy of Broadway. That combination was his secret weapon. And just to give you an idea of his range, check this out. On one hand, he wrote these incredibly deep, serious classical pieces like his Jeremiah Symphony. This was major league music for the world's best orchestras. It showed he could hang with the greatest composers in history. But then, on the complete other end of the spectrum, he wrote West Side Story. And this wasn't just another musical, it completely changed Broadway. It took on really serious topics, it had groundbreaking dance, and the songs were just unforgettable. He proved that a Broadway musical could be just as powerful and artistic as a grand opera. I mean, that kind of range is just nuts. All right, so superstar conductor, check. Genius composer, check. What else could this guy possibly do? Well, believe it or not, he was also basically the OG educational streamer. He was super passionate about teaching everyone about music, especially young people. And this quote really sums up what he was all about. He honestly believed that music wasn't some exclusive club for experts. He thought it belonged to everybody. And he spent a huge part of his life trying to share that passion with as many people as he possibly could. He had this famous TV show called The Young People's Concerts, and his teaching method was so simple but so brilliant. First, he'd always start with a big, interesting question, like, what makes music funny? Then he'd explain it in really simple terms. But the most important part? He would show you, using a full orchestra right there to play examples. It was all about teaching you how to listen in a whole new way. So you've got the conductor, the composer, and the teacher, all wrapped up in one person. It's really no surprise that his impact was so massive, we're still talking about him all these years later. And hey, it wasn't just fans who thought he was a genius. The music industry knew it too. The guy won 16 Grammy Awards over his career. 16! That's just incredible. And it shows he was at the absolute top of his game in so many different areas. So when you boil it all down, why does he still matter so much? Well, he completely tore down the wall between serious classical music and popular stuff like jazz and Broadway. He took musical theater and turned it into a high art form. And of course, he inspired generations of musicians and teachers. His work is still being performed everywhere, all the time. Look, if there is one thing you remember from all of this, let it be this. Leonard Bernstein was a rule breaker. He wasn't afraid to mix things up and cross boundaries, And because he did that, he created music that was totally new, incredibly powerful, and just exciting. Which kind of leaves us with one last question for you. Bernstein was the ultimate musical multitasker of his time. So who do you think is doing that today? Who are the artists out there right now, breaking the rules, mashing up genres, and creating something totally new? Let us know what you think.